Writing documents for transnational and transcultural audiences can present several problems for workplace writers. The online lecture illustrates approaches for how to effectively write for transnational audiences. After reading your textbook and listening to this online lecture, you will accomplish several learning objectives. Technical writers prepare documents that can be translated. You need to be aware of your own language to know how your language might be interpreted by non-native speakers and how the language might be translated. To account for terminology in a document, you can create an annotated glossary of terms, jargon, and new words. You can make your workplace writing clear and concise for translators by avoiding idioms, acronyms, and unnecessary words. References to popular culture and use of humor do not translate well and could be interpreted as inappropriate or insulting to your audience. You will be responsible for designing the workplace documents to accommodate the shifts in space needed for translation in regards to the document's design. Now, this email fails to communicate effectively with transnational audiences. Here are several ways that we can improve the translation for non-native English workers by thinking about the terminology, clarity, cultural and rhetorical differences, the document's design, as well as the guidelines for writing to transnational audiences. First, we should avoid undefined abbreviations or acronyms. ASAP must be defined. Though all readers within the United States might understand this to mean as soon as possible, you cannot assume the same level of understanding internationally. Next, we need to watch for informal tone and be aware of cultural sensitivity. Informality is common in many stateside businesses, but this is not true in all countries. Germany and Japan, for example, are far more formal in their business practices and in their technical communication expectations. Thus, the words guys and the contractions in the email could cause problems, creating an incorrect tone. In the United States, we might see humor in referencing to our boss as the old ball and chain, although this is highly doubtful. In Japan, however, where saving face is a cultural norm, potentially offending a superior would be a problem. And finally, pronto is cowboy slang. To communicate internationally, you must consider each country's cultural norms and be careful to avoid offense or confusion. We also need to use correct punctuation. Non-native English speakers might not know contractions, so it is best to write out the words. And the slash mark between carrier and vendor could mean either new carrier or vendor, or new carrier and vendor. Which is it? We need to choose the correct word. And then lastly, the comma is not placed in front of the word so. We should use a comma before conjunctions to join independent clauses. Conjunctions are the words and, but, for, nor, or, so, and yet. All of the words boxed in red are idiomatic phrases. Though these phrases might communicate within the United States, they may not translate internationally. We need to be aware of local numbers, time differences, date differences, and measurement differences when communicating to transnational audiences. The date, time, and measurements are not written for a transnational audience. Does 03/07/07 mean March 7th, 2007, or July 3rd, 2007? European countries write the day followed by the month and year. 12 o'clock not only fails to specify the time zone, but it creates a question whether midnight or noon is intended. It is important to use AM and PM and to specify the time zone. You don't want to miss deadlines or meetings because of time differences. And lastly, the measurement 8 by 10 by 23 is confusing. Is the writer discussing inches, feet, or meters? The United States uses a standard system of measurement, while most of the world uses the metric system. We need to specify measurements so our products are not incorrectly produced. And lastly, we do need to avoid sexist language. While this was not addressed in your chapter, it's important to know that guys and men should be terms avoided when writing any technical correspondence. The implication is that only men will be involved in the discussion, which might be erroneous. You can see the example of this email posted on Canvas, and I have shared with you a corrected version of the email that takes into consideration the translation for a transnational audience. I hope these documents can help you see ways that you can do your writing and format your workplace documents to avoid these errors.